All right, boys, what's going on? We're here again with Premier League predictions for Match Week 11. First, let's recap Match Week 10. So Match Week 10 started off a bit rough, right? We had Arsenal winning 1-0, and they ended up losing 1-0. I feel kind of good that the game was low scoring, so I was able to see the game total pretty well. In the end, I mean, it's still a bad prediction, right? I don't know what I can do with Newcastle, because the second I go back Newcastle, they just do this thing again where they just end up drawing or losing to a worse team. Southampton, Everton, yeah, not great. I had Everton winning 2-1. They ended up losing 1-0. The main problem here is the fact that I thought I could start trusting Everton. In hindsight, probably should have realized that if I'm back in Everton, something might be off here, but they end up losing to Southampton 1-0. Great result for Southampton there. Speaking of great results, Nottingham Forest beats West Ham 3-0. I had 1-1 predicted. I said this in the Discord. I had this on stream. I stand by the 1-1 Forest and West Ham prediction. I'm not going to go and say that the red card ruined it, but I feel like obviously the red card just made the game a bit different than what I thought it was going to be. Nottingham Forest, though, nothing to laugh at, nothing to joke about. They're for real. They're serious right now. Liverpool and Brighton, I had 3-1. The match ends 2-1. A little bit off. I mean, it was kind of crazy. They were down 1-0 at halftime, but still, they end up getting the result and winning 2-1. Ipswich, Leicester. There's something about me predicting a 2-2 in the match ending 1-1 that makes me feel so terrible, because I've said it before in videos how it is very difficult to predict a 2-2, but sometimes I like to take that chance and go after it, even though like my thought process is draw, but I go for the 2-2 because it's, I mean, sometimes you see these Prem matches, they end 2-2. But no, not this one. Ends 1-1. I had 2-2. Bournemouth, Manchester City, probably the biggest upset of Match Week 10. I had Manchester City winning 2-1. They end up outright losing 2-1. So like the Arsenal game, I get the exact amount of goals right, even technically the right score line right, just in the reverse. So Arsenal and City, yikes. Wolves and Crystal Palace ends 2-2. I predict 1-1. And just like the Ipswich Leicester match, I was just getting done saying that. Of course, here, 2-2 draw. I predict 1-1 draw. It's still a draw. I'm not sure if I get any brownie points for that. I'm not giving myself any points for that, but it's annoying. It's still annoying. Getting the result right, getting a draw result is always nice, though. I will say that. Even if it's not the exact score, I feel like still getting that draw result is still pretty nice. Tottenham beat Villa 4-1. A bit disappointed with Villa's, I guess, defense in this match, but I mean, Tottenham was just way too much for Villa here at home. Manchester United and Chelsea, I had 1-1. The match finishes 1-1. Just felt right with that new manager bounce for United. And then Fulham Brentford. So I was actually recording this video like 20-30 minutes ago, and I had to redo my entire recap because Fulham ends up coming back and wins the match 2-1, scoring 2 goals in extra time. As lucky as that may seem with the Fulham Brentford match ending 2-1, I've lost some predictions on teams scoring extremely late goals. So for all those ones that I've lost, we'll take this one. We will take this one. All in all, that was 5 out of 10 1x2 predictions correct, and 2 out of 10 correct scores, with both of them being the last 2 matches of Match Week 10. Let's get to Match Week 11. Boys, if you guys haven't already, I would really appreciate it if you guys subscribe to the channel and like this video. I also really like reading the comments on what people's thought processes are for their predictions. I want to hear what you guys are predicting, who you guys think is going to score, so please drop a comment below and let me know what your favorite prediction is of Match Week 11. So we have Crystal Palace and Fulham here. The first thing I see right away is that Crystal Palace is being given 2.4 on their money line, with Fulham being given 2.85 on their money line. I'm sure these odds are going to correct and change a little bit just because Fulham just had that crazy 2-1 winner. Let's go look at the total real quickly. So the total for this match sits right at 2.5, which is not surprising at all. Both teams' score sitting at 1.8. So Crystal Palace is coming off that 2-2 draw versus Wolves, while Fulham is coming off that 2-1 electric win versus Brentford. Crystal Palace at home has just not been that special. I will say they have gotten some interesting results here that we could still think about. The Manchester United draw is pretty decent, and only losing to Liverpool 1-0 is also decent, and then they followed it up with another great result versus Tottenham. Fulham away from home, they've just been, I mean, they've been somewhat back and forth, right? They drew Ipswich 1-1, which is the first time I was like, all right, I don't know what to think about Fulham here. And then they beat Nottingham Forest away from home, which I think is a great result, especially now. Beating Nottingham Forest at home is not going to be an easy task for any team. They lose a thriller to City 3-2, and they drew Everton 1-1. Recently, when they've played, they've been 1-1, 0-0, 2-2. That's 3 straight draws. I feel like I was already thinking draw before even looking at the recent matches, so I hope that doesn't come off as me saying that I think it's going to be a draw because of the recent matches. What I'm going to go with this match is a 1-1 Crystal Palace Fulham draw. West Ham and Everton, 2 teams that have just been, I mean, very back and forth. I know the Prem has a lot of back and forth, but we're talking about 2 teams who have not had 2 straight straight of the same result. Now, you're probably thinking, what does that mean? I mean, we have draw, win, loss, and we have win, draw, loss. That straight up, neither team has seen the same two results in back-to-back match weeks. I don't know if that's a crazy stat or not, but I just came up with it now. We go through the recent head-to-head matches here. We see West Ham have beat them 3-1. We see Everton have won 1-0. West Ham have won 2-0, 1-0. So that brings me to the total. Now that I've seen some scores, some recent matches here, I know what the odds are. I would like to know what the total is. So the total sits at about 3 on the dot, and the both teams' score is 1.63. For me in this match, I think I'm going to stick with West Ham at home. I'm going to go with a 2-1 West Ham win over Everton. Here we have Wolves and Southampton, and we're talking about a battle of two teams near the bottom of the table. I know it sounds crazy to be like, oh, I'm excited about Wolves Southampton, but I mean, I am. You have two teams that are actually scrapping, battling, fighting to not get relegated here, and they are giving Wolves odds below 2, which makes me feel like they are giving significant love to the Wolves here. Both teams' score sits at 1.57, which I actually find to be very low. So recently here with the Wolves, they've had 4 goals, 4 goals, 3 goals, 8 goals, 3 goals. That's insane. And then on the flip side here for Southampton, we've seen 1 goal, 5 goals, 4 goals. A bit back and forth, especially with their last 2 Prem matches only having 2 goals total, 1 goal in each. 1 match they've won and 1 match they've lost. Do I want to give a goal to Southampton? It becomes a bit tough, right? For this match, Wolves and Southampton, I'm going to go with a 2-1 Wolves win. Here we have Brighton and Manchester City, and for the first time, we are seeing Manchester City start to lose some love from the books. 1.73 away from home. One thing we have to think about, though, is they do play Sporting on Tuesday in Champions League. Brighton, who just lost to Liverpool 2-1, they drew Wolves 2-2, and they beat Newcastle away from home, and they beat Tottenham. I do think Brighton has some nice results here. We see the total sitting at about 3.5, so we're thinking about 3-4 goals in this match. In the past, predicting City matches was very straightforward for me. I would always take the total, kind of go a little bit under the total, and just give City the amount of goals that was a difference in the total. But now with City sliding and losing matches outright, and even drawing, right? They drew Newcastle, they lost to Bournemouth here. I mean, overall, it's not like City's just been running the league, right? They had a draw versus Arsenal, a tough draw versus Newcastle. They scrapped by a win versus Fulham. They barely beat Wolves. They barely beat Southampton, and they outright lost to Bournemouth here. Thinking about all those things, it kind of makes it a bit difficult to figure out, am I going to back City here? I feel like it would be crazy to go against Manchester City still. I think I would need another week of them to prove me wrong before I start going against them here. For this match, Brighton and Manchester City, I'm going to go with a 2-1 Manchester City win. Brentford versus Bournemouth. We have 2.3 for Brentford on the money line, 2.85 for Bournemouth on the money line, and 3.6 for the draw. The total sits at about 3.5, so they're thinking about 3-4 goals in this match, with both teams to score very low at 1.5. So I think Brentford are decent. And I think Bournemouth are decent, right? I know people are going to be like, yo, Bournemouth just decent. They just beat Manchester City. No, for sure, I get that, but Premier League is a very week-to-week league. So recently, when Bournemouth and Brentford have played, we've seen a 2-1 Brentford win, a 2-2 draw, 2-0, 0-0 draw, and that's just about as far back as I like to go, right? I don't have to go back too much further than that. So we have 2 BTTSs here, and 2 out of 3 games went over 2.5, with the odds being in a direction of 3 here. And Brentford and Bournemouth, neither team like screams to me that I should be backing them. I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw. Liverpool versus Aston Villa. We have Liverpool sitting here at 1.49 at home, which is somewhat respect to Aston Villa. Usually Liverpool drop in about 1.3 at home, maybe 1.35 at home. So they're giving a bit of a respect to Aston Villa by almost making Liverpool 1.5 odd. And remember, as usual, both teams here will be playing midweek in Champions League as well. The total for the match sits right at 3.5, 2 for this match. Yeah, right about 3.5 for this match. So we're thinking about 4 goals here. Both teams score sitting at 1.58. So they're not truly loving Aston Villa to score, but it's still low enough where they're making me feel like the books are at least thinking that Aston Villa do get a goal in Anfield here. Liverpool at home, there's not much to say. They've been insane, with the only blemish really being Nottingham. Let's look at the Liverpool Aston Villa head-to-head matches at Anfield here. We've seen Liverpool win 3-0. They've drawn 1-1. Liverpool won 1-0, 2-1, and even 2-0. I know that stretches as back as 2020, but just something to look at here. Overall, it does seem like 2-1 is kind of a fitting scoreline for this match. It does seem a little bit generic generic to me. I think there is something here I'm going to do that's a little bit of against the grain. I hope this doesn't cost me on the correct score. For Liverpool and Aston Villa, I'm going to go with a 2-0 Liverpool win. Manchester United versus Leicester City. We have Manchester United sitting here at 1.36 with Leicester City at 7.5. Manchester United new manager. They actually had a very nice result against Leicester in the EFL Cup where they throttled them 5-2 and they drew Chelsea 1-1. And before you say drawing Chelsea 1-1 at home is not, not a great result, I do think for how Manchester United were going, the trend they were going in with Erik ten Hag, I mean, a 1-1 result versus Chelsea is almost on the uplift here. So I don't think they can be too upset about that. And then we have Leicester, who are coming off an Ipswich draw and obviously the EFL Cup where they lost 5-2. They have lost to Nottingham 3-1. They did beat Southampton 3-2, and they did beat Bournemouth 1-0. The last times Manchester United and Leicester City have played, we've seen Manchester United win 3-0. We've seen them win 1-0, draw 1-1, and even a 4-2 Leicester win here. I feel like Old Trafford is just too much to overcome for Leicester. I know there's this idea that Manchester United may not be up to par. They may not have the right players. There's a lot of questions surrounding them, but I feel like this is not the match where I'm going to go against the grain here. I just want to see what the total is. The total is 3.5 here. Both teams' score is 1.67. I'm going to keep this one pretty straightforward. I'm going to go with a Manchester United 2-0 win over Leicester City. Nottingham Forest and Newcastle. So right away we see Nottingham Forest 2.75 on the money line. We see Newcastle 2.55 and the draw at 3.3. The first thing that sticks out to me right away is the fact that Newcastle are favorites away from home. When we go to the recent head-to-head, we do see that both teams to score has landed in 4 out of the last 5 matches. The problem here is with over 2.5 and both teams to score is Nottingham at home don't really concede or have a lot of goals in general. So if we look at the total, we do see the total sitting probably at 3. Yeah, I think it's gonna be about 3 with 2.5 being 1.85 and 3.5 being 3.4. Safe to say that 3 is probably right around 2. The both teams to score market sits at 1.75. The problem with me in this match is my head's going in 2 different directions. Do I really want to back Newcastle to just outright get the win? Do I really want to back Nottingham Forest to go with their 4th straight win with a massive win over Newcastle? To both those answers, I'm going to say no. I'm going to go with a Nottingham Forest and Newcastle 1-1 draw. Here we have Tottenham and Ipswich. Tottenham is 1.23 on the money line with Ipswich being 11 odd to win the match, and 6.75 is the draw. So for the over-under, we are seeing the total as high as about 4, which is going to be one of the higher totals of the Prem in the match week. I think it's going to be the highest without even looking at the next match. It's got to be the highest here. So 4 is the total. Both teams to score is 1.67, which kind of already guides you where this match is going to go when you have a total at 4 and the both teams to score markets at 1.67. Recent head-to-heads here look good for Tottenham, with their only blemish being that Crystal Palace L. They have beaten teams 4-1, 2-1, 4-1. We look at Ipswich's recent results, and they're still searching for that first win of the season. It really hasn't been great, but I guess you could say it could be worse with some of these draws they've gotten. Like drawing Aston Villa's pretty nice, drawing Brighton's pretty nice, even drawing Fulham's pretty nice. So as much as I want to say like Ipswich are just terrible, they're terrible, but I feel like drawing against some of these teams is not the worst result you can probably ask for. So overall, looking at Tottenham's recent results, looking at Ipswich's recent results, and then looking at the odds here and the total, we have an idea that the books are just kind of guiding us into a 3-0, 3-1, 4-1. So with those kind of score lines that I have to predict from, I'm going to go with a Tottenham Ipswich 3-1 Tottenham win. Chelsea and Arsenal. Finally, we have the last match of match week 11, and it's a pretty big one here. So, and the odds reflect it as well. The odds definitely reflect the unpredictability of this match. We have Arsenal being the favorites at 2.45, with Chelsea being the underdog at 2.75 and the draw being 3.5. Right away in matches like this, without looking at anything, even thinking about anything, I always think draw. It's always a tightly contested match, usually a bit dead first half and then some fireworks second half. Just kind of my initial thoughts, but let's go dig into the odds a little bit deeper. Over under sits right at 3. No surprise there. Both teams score markets is at 1.62. Both teams score 1.62. Wouldn't say surprises me that much. We have Chelsea coming off that 1-1 draw, and we have Arsenal coming off that 1-0 loss. Chelsea's only loss at home came at the very beginning of the season to Manchester City, so we won't hold that one too much against them. And then since then, their only like slight faults have been drawing Forest and drawing Palace, which Forest and Palace Palace this year have just been those type of teams, right? You know, getting a draw from a team like Chelsea. Arsenal away from home have not been that great. They only have one win in their last 4 Premier League matches, and that was to Tottenham. Since then, they've lost to Bournemouth and they've lost to Newcastle. I know the red card happened in Bournemouth, but you know, you can only make excuses for so long before you're like, what's going on here? And then recently when they've played, we've seen an Arsenal win 5-0. We've seen a 2-2 draw, a 3-1 Arsenal win, a 1-0 Arsenal win. It does not seem like Chelsea has really gotten the win here recently. When was the last time Chelsea beat Arsenal in league? It was in 2021, 2-0. So we're going on what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight Premier League matches that Chelsea have not beaten Arsenal. And we do have Arsenal coming off that crazy Newcastle defeat. And also just in general, the season's kind of sputtering a little bit. We know Chelsea play Conference League on Thursday. Arsenal play Champions League on Wednesday. For this match here, I'm going to go with a Arsenal 2-1 win over Chelsea. All right, boys, that wraps up Match Week 11 predictions. If you haven't already, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel and like this video. Also, again, drop down a comment below on what your favorite correct score predictions are or what you think about my predictions in general. After this week, we have a pretty long international break. The next video will be released the week of Match Week 12, and I'll see you guys on the next one.